Spanish. All right, aloha nui kako. You guys ready? I'll kick off today's meeting. So welcome you guys to our meeting today. And I see we have some staff members, so maybe if we just go around for the staff, introduce yourselves and what your role in place, so that the commission members can get the meeting started. We'll start with the side.
Good morning, David Tomber, Economic Recovery Corps Fellow from IEDC, working with OER to support their entrepreneurship small business initiatives. Nice to see you all.
Aloha, Alyssa Gosley, Business Connector Administrator, so I'm doing a lot of the OBC backend and resource partner engagement.
Aloha, Dominique, I'm a resource connector and I'm on the business connector team.
Hello, I'm Kayla Tancianco, the data specialist for OER.
And I'm Mira Miller, the other half of our data team, the data strategist.
Josh Thompson, small business and finance.
Rachel Harmono, administrative specialist, so I help with the procurement.
Good morning, I'm Max Rodriguez, and I'm the communications manager here at OER.
When did you start, Max?
About 5 months ago.
5 months ago. Are you the newest member of the team?
No, there's been a couple.
Maybe John.
Josh.
I would be the newest one in this week.
Yes.
Less than 5 months.
Yes.
Good morning, Constancio Arenal, Innovation and Technology.
Okay, and I'm Olin Lagat, Commissioner. Commissioners introduce themselves.
Tony Mizuno.
Debbie Louis Anderson.
Keone.
Great Kim.
And we have one commissioner online. I don't see a face. I think she's
She hasn't.
not on yet.
No.
Okay. No, just us. All right, so I'm assuming that everybody read the minutes or the commissioners have read the minutes, so if you have, do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second? Okay, all in favor, say aye. All right, so we've approved the minutes and now we're gonna move on to the next agenda item, update from OER Director Amy.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's.
Oh, okay. All right, there's a reason that Reed is not here today. Super happy to share that cute little picture. This is Cameron and Nico Chung.
Sorry, it wasn't.
Where is she? That little biscuit.
I
Just
know
click
what
on
I
it.
just did.
Sorry. There you go.
There we go.
Awesome. So she was just born last week and I think last time we were gonna meet, he had a doctor's appointment or something, but baby's great, everything's going great and just happy. There's another wonderful new life on our island, so super cool. Next page is just an update on the 3 priority areas over the last year that the commission established for the Office of Economic Revitalization, right? Work with the grants contractor, business incubation, and the Oahu Business Connector. So I'm really excited to say that in the area of grants, this is where we've made the most exciting and biggest leaps forward, actually, even since we last talked to you all. You know, there's this end of the Biden administration that some of you may have heard about recently. It's wrapping up, and so they're trying to get some last minute money out the door. They had a 1-week window for some disaster resiliency funding, and so with Constancio, David, everyone really coming to the table, Alyssa coming up with a great idea for our proposal. OER submitted a $250,000 business disaster resiliency program, which will include workshop, outreach, and planning that would support really all of our small businesses on the island to be better ready for the next health, economic, global shock, right? So we want to do this planning through the Oahu Business Connector website. So our partner SourceLink has, some tools that they've already established, and we would expand on that for some of the needs here on our island on Oahu. There's 79 resource partners now, a part of the Oahu Business Connector network. And so we would tap into them for workshops and other support for small businesses to begin their disaster resiliency planning, et cetera. But the main thing that I think the website will offer is that connection, that source point in the event of any kind of disaster, a wildfire, et cetera. So we really want to continue to build out. This is one of the next iterations already after the first 6 months of the Oahu Business Connector, where we see it can be useful, not in duplicating what others out there are doing, but providing a new source of information, providing more opportunities for nonprofits, small businesses, others who are already skilled in this area to bring their knowledge and expertise to the table through OBC. So we basically were told by the Economic Development Administration, fix these little technical things and we'll send you the money shortly. So super pumped that, the scrambling around in a week to put a big federal grant together was worth it. And so we're all feeling pretty good about that, but it was, as those who submit federal grants know, kind of crazy, and we have some lessons learned and things that we're going to work on going forward, but it's a great opportunity to expand our resource connector outreach and do some more programming there. Secondly, this is kind of more a little bit in Keonu's zone. We're really excited that, the city had signed this MOA with the Ulupono initiative. And just like the state, it allows the city to tap them as a resource for grant writing and other support for federal funding. And so they're very specific about the things they're interested in, what they're funding, but it aligns perfectly with our sustainable ag and food systems program area. And so Alex Narajos, our new ag program manager, got $6,000 worth of grant training out of Ulupono. From that, she drafted a proposal that we hope to submit to the USDA Rural Development Administration in January. We've got some time to work on that, but it would basically, again, use the network of technical support that's out there to provide resources, information, et cetera, to small farmers. Our target is really those on 10 acres or less, or those people who have in mind, I'd love to be a farmer. How can I get support, right? We funded Go Farm since OER has been stood up, and we are just looking for opportunities to continue to sort of reinforce again that inclusive entrepreneurial ecosystem, which we believe, those farmers are entrepreneurs, and there's other experts in the room, but just really excited that this other area is kind of being brought back to life via Ulupono and a great new program manager in that area. Because people are crazy, also, we're working on a $1 million Bloomberg Global Mayors Challenge. We'll be competing with any city around the world that is over 100,000 in population. But again, we have an initiative in the ag area. They're looking for innovation. They're looking for ways that cities can be innovative, creative in delivering services. So we think this might be a great opportunity, and I don't know, County, maybe we'll be in touch as we continue to draft this and need some input as we go. We believe in collaboration. So that's just really exciting for all of us that this thing that we said we were going to do, this thing that we said we're going to get good at, we're on our way. So progress and yay team.
Two quick questions there.
Hey, Amy, this is Melly. I have a quick question. Apologies everyone for being late. Is the innovation more like innovative technology or like innovative uses in like agricultural sourcing, or like, is there any specifics around what innovation means?
What we're proposing, Melly?
Yeah.
Or what the Bloomberg folks want?
Or yeah, I guess what the priorities are, just to understand that.
You want to add to the understanding of that?
Yeah, as far as the priorities, there wasn't anything specific that Bloomberg identified as their focus. I think it is anything that encompass either agriculture, small business, entrepreneurship, innovation in those spaces. The use of public facilities is also one of the areas that they wanted to that was one of the identified areas. So I think it was pretty comprehensive and extensive in terms of the projects that can be submitted or proposed.
We can share
Okay,
with you
okay, thank you.
the link and a little
Yeah,
bit of
yeah.
information. This grant is like, submit your idea. And then they're gonna try to whittle it down to 50, I think, that can submit full proposals. And then 25 cities would be awarded $1 million. It's accompanied with a bunch of support from the Bloomberg network too. So.
Okay,
We're
cool,
gonna
that's
go for it,
amazing.
and
Thank you.
win or lose, we'll have, something that we worked on collaboratively. Sorry, Millie.
Oh, no, I was just saying thank you. That's amazing.
I'd be happy to look at any of them, like if your concept draft it for what you're gonna submit for this round, I'd be happy to look at it.
We love that.
It's through the EDA, the $250,000.
Yeah. Mhm.
And for the grants administrator, they're actually working on that too, so that's the halfway that we're going through.
We mostly did it ourselves. We asked our grants contractor to take a look at our first draft. And she really sent back like, you need to elucidate here. This needs to be better defined, really pointed comments where we need to expand in our proposal or where something wasn't clear, that kind of thing. Not that I'm trying to, utilize the contract minimally, but the major thing that we're getting to is 3 big proposals or priorities from each of the offices under the managing director. And so we are not quite there yet with them. Once they review kind of what we're looking at in January, and this is Essential Leap, Solution Specific, and Skog Rasmussen, with tapping into Melissa Ham's nationwide network through her organizations. They'll kind of look at how do we shape these proposals so we can get a federal grant based on what money is available. And if I didn't say this, sorry, thinking backwards. They're looking to do that for all the managing directors' offices by January.
Thanks.
Back to the same page. So additionally, small business connections, I think the biggest update was last commission meeting in terms of what's happening with the Oahu Business Connector and our work there. I guess biggest new positive there is having Josh Thompson on as our new small business and finance program manager. So we're excited to get moving now that we have someone in place. And then finally, on the business incubation, we're very excited to share a proposal in that area, which is kind of a thank you to the Permitted Interaction Group of Olin, Eliza, and Reed that pushed us to look at the $25,000 in this incubation space. So we'll be talking about that later and super excited to share that. On the next slide, just updating, I mentioned that the Department of Land Management is working on these Chapter 38 revisions that would allow us to use city spaces at below market rates for economic development, community development, nonprofit support, and arts. So we think that will be a huge step forward, that the city could potentially use some of these retail spaces that we own and are underutilized in Chinatown. Another recent development, I guess the WOFAT building, Tony probably knows this, went on the market or is going, the developers are filing for bankruptcy. So the city is actually looking at that. I don't think we jumped in the first round, but they could see it being used for affordable housing. On the bottom, it's retail space that we would love to put a proposal forward. One option, of course, would be the innovation space that we've been talking to UH and Bacillus Sirmos about. They have a $5 million earmark still pending with Senator Schott. So whether it's the low fat building, which is just a dream, or whether it's the city spaces that we already own, which could be facilitated by this change in chapter 38. We're really excited that we would be the programmer. Department of Land Management would still manage the facilities, but we could bring more, business vitality, and I'm sure Tony would love some more neighbors who are conducting business down in Chinatown around ASB, etc. But just super excited about those opportunities, as well as the TOD project I mentioned in Beavy Lake. That, if you haven't heard, right, that TOD station is kind of a big project that requires both brownfields remediation and sea level rise adjustment. But the plan between the city and the state at this point is buy the 30 acres of property land around there and develop 26,000 plus units of mixed income level housing.
Where is that?
Evie Lake. Yeah. So right around IHS, Costco, where the city's senior affordable housing already is over there. So we bought a few more spaces. The city recently bought the 250,000 square foot warehouse over there. Can't remember who previously owned that, but that site is where the city plans to put up a huge affordable housing tower. And then the master planning is already underway. Another $2 million grant was recently secured for planning and design.
Is that the corner of, like where Kmart was, that section, that warehouse space that you're talking about, like?
So it's
IHS?
30 acres. So
Oh.
King Street,
You're coming
all the
off
way back.
Nimitz, you turn where Kmart used to be in.
Yeah.
Like, what is it called?
It's down there or no?
Yeah, it's back there. Yeah, there's a complex.
Oh, right, that attaches
Yeah,
to,
like a cannery with all kinds of industrial tenants.
oh, okay.
Mhm. Mhm. Previous railroad area, I guess, which is a big part of the contamination, fuel depot, etc.
Wheelie Street.
Oh, okay.
I think it's on Wheelie Street.
Yeah, I mean, this might be something we think about for a presentation, maybe a combination of the folks here that are working on it, Office of Housing, DPP, Office of Planning and Sustainable Development, DTS, our friends right out here. They've got to redo the whole road system in that area for mobility hub and better access if you have 26,000 units down there 10 years from now.
Yeah.
This is where we want to be involved in the development of this. Yeah. And again, I mentioned this before, but the city has tens of millions of dollars in our Land and Water Conservation Fund. We've begun those conversations with both CCSR's ag person and ours. We have a meeting next week with Olu, our lovely commission member from Hawaii Island Land Trust, and the Ag Development Corporation, looking at some of their big plans in Wahiwa, as well as Hilt's ability to manage conservation land as adjacent to ag or whatever we might do. Basically, that fund allows the city to purchase either land for conservation or agriculture uses. And, for us, manage for the further economic development of this island. So we think obviously best figured out in collaboration with others who are also working on some big ag plans. And we had a long meeting with the deputy director at DVET last week for their ag park plans, et cetera, out in Wahiwa. So we look to utilize that opportunity to maximize small farm support. These are all areas, right, where dollars are coming into OER or going out. As the State Small Business Credit Initiative, we should be drawing down our first 40,000 to do outreach and technical assistance for small businesses that want to go after federal insured loans. The Community Equity Liaison Team, I just need to submit the 3 new hires who all speak multiple languages besides English for our new outreach initiative supported by Councilmember Wire, Cordero, and Kia Ina. Compact migrant death benefits will be administered through the We Are Oceania nonprofit. That has taken way longer than one would have expected to execute, but we hope to kick that off before the Christmas holiday. Good Jobs Oahu is still underway. Just noting with Good Jobs, right? Our new program manager is Sue Lazo, who we swiped from Olin at Purple Maya. But she's wonderful, trained with the best, obviously. And she's gonna continue to work on city job pathways that are, hopefully $20 an hour plus jobs, as well as filling the 60 internships that we have established through that program at Kupu, the Chamber of Commerce, and banquet services. Trying to remember exactly that specific, but that is not for hospitality training, it's more creative industries.
Where are the funds for all of these coming from?
So Good Job, so the orange is general funds, and the others are all federal funds. Good Jobs Oahu and the Compact Migrant Death Benefits are the remainder of the city's pandemic relief. The others are grants, and so the last two, Constancio is working with the state broadband office and UH on broadband equity access and deployment, 100,000. And we're still waiting. It was August, it was October, and now we still hope to help push out $720,000 or around that amount for more digital equity support and nonprofits in the community. Next slide. These are just a couple initiatives that are still underway. Constanzo and I had a good meeting with the managing director's office and the Office of Budget and Fiscal Services. As we speak, the city is conducting public hearings on our next 5-year community development block grant 5-year consolidated plan. What OER is hoping is that for the first time in many years, economic development will be a feature of that. And it will be something that we're aiming towards to do more economic development under those HUD funded programs. A big chunk of that is obviously affordable housing, homeless support, etc. But we believe that there's a role in there that aligns very much with our equity focused work around economic development. So we're still working on that. And one of our staff is over at the public hearing to present OER's presentation. On Saturday, we welcome you all to Chinatown. This is our pilot, our first ever attempt to do and support community placemaking. So our regenerative tourism program manager has been working like crazy and bringing in team members to support and build this out, which is sort of a model of how we can hopefully work with within the construct of the destination management action plan to have a model of regenerative tourism that really lifts up our small businesses, our people, and this place. We think, what is Chinatown? Of course, it can always be improved, and the mayor is looking for any opportunity to do that. But there's a bunch of great businesses there. Happen to co-own one of them, but we're just also lifting up, some of the fashion designers there. So there'll be a fashion show. Hawaii Theater is doing a number of different culture and arts performances. We'll have, some small businesses set up on the street for vending. The street will be closed. The Chinese Chamber of Commerce is doing bouncy houses and other stuff. What am I missing, Max?
A chunk of Bethel Street will be closed just for pedestrian access. That way it's easy for our guests to come and walk around and enjoy the shops around there. And easy parking, the former Walmart Macy's building, there'll be free parking for attendees, so no excuse.
Yeah, parking sometimes is an excuse. The Royal Hawaiian Band will be there. So it's 2 p.m. to 9 p.m. on Saturday. We welcome you and your friends and family to come, or encourage someone in Chinatown to, come out and join. We hope that this is a model for what we might be able to do to support other small business, commercial areas and unique cultural and storied places. So this is our pilot, and we're crossing our fingers that people show up and it goes well. There's been a lot of planning put into it, and Max was just on the TV with Guillaume this morning.
KHON Living 808, and keep an eye out for a segment Friday as well at 7 p.m. on KHON. We'll be diving more into how this aligns with DMAP and HCA's goals there. So that's Amy mentioned.
And Amy, what is that acronym for? This is like a national trend, or this is something you guys made up?
This is something, dine, art, shop, love. So love it or hate it. It's just for what kind of some of the special aspects of Chinatown that we're trying to bring out. Support for entrepreneurs, really excited again. On Saturday, we were able to rustle up $500 for Colin Cadena and his new Keiki Rise cohort of 10 Keiki entrepreneurs. One of them got the $500 award for, innovation, creativity, etc. They are so excited about their businesses, and wonderfully, Dom was there and was able to connect with some of them who need some other help with what is the next step in their business. So 17-year-old kid, he's the next Keone Lee, Melly James, pretty cool. Love really seeing him pull this big event off up on that lanai on the Royal Hawaiian. And then this Saturday after Thanksgiving, right, Black Friday being what it is, we really want to encourage everyone to support small businesses. So we're able to sponsor Kipa Kaimuki for their Small Business Saturday, and the Waianae Economic Development Council is holding a big pop-up in the Nanakuli Shopping Center. So we'll have staff, milling around both of those, but we got Oahu Business Connector bags out to all the participating businesses, and really feel good about finally getting our procurement processes in place to even be able to do this. So it's a new step forward for us too. And that's really it. I just wanted to point out that we are in a transition phase here at OER. You may have noticed Kim is not at the meeting, and she is transitioning out of OER. It's kind of odd to not have it announced at the cabinet meeting just because of various scheduling difficulties, but you can go back, Kate. The team here has really stepped up and helped me to keep things going, even at, maybe an increased pace. And we're really working on our alignment with the comprehensive economic development strategy to make sure not only do we understand, where our responsibilities lie, how we can work to implement some of these plans, right? People put a lot of time and energy into these 5-year plans, and then we kind of very frequently put them on a shelf and look at them 40 years later and think, that was a good idea. What happened to that? So we are aligning all of that internally, really seeing how we can work together. And one of our next steps is also to bring in those outside partners and collaborators to understand that as well. We've renegotiated an agreement with Islander Institute to work on how we practice community engagement, that we're always listening to make sure that we're there with people where the momentum is in terms of economic development and opportunities. And we have a day-long workshop with them set for December 3rd. That'll help with our strategic communications and how we conduct community engagement as an organization. I didn't talk fast. That is it.
That's it. Anybody have questions for Amy?
Where's Kim going? Does she have plans or?
Yes,
Okay.
yep. And I think when it's finalized, she'll
Okay.
be comfortable saying so.
Sure.
She always
That's
like, was kind of
surprising,
like, didn't want to say.
She got a lot done,
Yeah.
So that's a big loss for you, huh?
Yeah. So we won't have a deputy till sometime next year, but looking forward to that too.
I'm sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead, go ahead.
No, I just had a couple of quick questions. So on the incubator, I remember when we discussed it initially, we weren't quite sure how it would take shape, but we just thought, well, I could use more incubators, like more Mana Ups of the world, but maybe different sectors. And then we weren't quite sure if we were going to just outsource it, do it ourselves. I mean, it was sort of up in the air. It sounds like from what you said, we're gonna do it ourselves. The incubator, we're gonna run it ourselves. Is that
We'll
fair?
talk about it later, if you can put that
Okay.
in the
So
parking
hopefully
lot, and we'll
meet for
share.
the next presentation.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Because, there's pros and cons to that. And then the other thing that occurred to me is we get a lot of grants, which is wonderful, but I think generally grants are non-recurring. So it makes me wonder what happens when the grant's done to what you're doing. And then, obviously as a government agency, grants are important, we're not gonna live without them. But also it makes me wonder, what is our sustainable source of revenue, so that we can keep everybody, or keep programs alive, right? Is that the city?
The staff is funded by general funds.
Right, but maybe we need to increase that if we prove our case, so.
That's what the city council does. Yeah, so we'll,
Is
I
this like
mean-
a singing to the choir thing?
yeah,
No, but we can make a pitch, right, as commission. I think that is warranted. They're not gonna make the pitch, the OER makes the
Absolutely.
pitch, right?
that's our job.
So is the idea with these grants, you build programs and hopefully prove your case, you wanna keep it going, then you go to the city council and say, well, the grant's running out, but we'd like to keep this going. So you make your pitch, or what is the
I mean,
strategy?
I think our model right now is going after federal funds, partnering with other organizations in the community to see that through. For the next couple of years, I really don't see dollars flowing out of general funds for us just because of hazard pay and rail and sewer fees and everything else. Our source of revenue in the city is property tax. And I don't think there's an appetite to up that. I think there's more of an appetite at the council to figure out how to protect Kupuna from rising property tax. So we have to swim in the pool we're in. And right now we see that we're getting better at it. And I think it's not a concern that we'll be going after federal grants because we think economic programs and activities are not necessarily, we figure it out, in 2024, and that's the thing we do through, 2050. So we are sort of okay at this point with having to be nimble.
Okay, no, I get that. How about public-private partnerships? Do we do that?
Well,
Because,
we hope to.
Okay, because that's another way. I'm just thinking of sustainability.
Every kind of funding that you saw listed up there is in the realm mostly of public partnerships. But I think that's the way we see forward is that we're working with others to accomplish what is, never a single office's prerogative anyway, making
Right.
some kind of economic development or economic impact.
A question on the farming aspect, like, as you're approaching small farming and, so many acres, but is anything going into vertical farming? And, because you need water, clean water sources, and obviously food safety is becoming more and more prevalent. And, if you're bringing all these other people with entrepreneurs, like maybe start them in the mindset of, your 1 acre can be 10 acres vertically or whatever it could be. And I don't know what the other models are, around, but I feel like with us being an island, and limited resources, that I'm just surprised that it's not being done more, like even throughout, like, on the, by Campbell, like, Colina, where you have these swaths of land, like, when you have access to clean water. So, I mean, it's just, I feel like, I don't know why.
It's one of those opportunities, there's one, and I wish we could take field trips, because we just went over to Metro Grow yesterday, and we took 2 students from Castle High School. I think it's like 4 to 1 right now, what he can produce, but he still doesn't have a business that makes money. I think it's a business that breaks even.
How big is that? We were just talking about Metro Grow. I wanted to take a look at it. Is it just one warehouse?
And warehouse, it is an office space essentially, Melly. I don't, County, do you have any thoughts in mind? I'm not good with space, but it's not much bigger than our conference room here, Melly, in total.
Oh, wow. Okay.
5 grow rooms, a lab space, a commercial kitchen, and they had what they hope to be a storefront, but it's over here in an industrial area. So I think one of the things we talked to Carrie about, and just looking at, for example, that development around the Evalay transit station. What could we do with that if it were senior affordable housing and vertical community gardens were a thing that we could support in those they're gonna be big buildings full of people. So I don't know the economics as well as either Carrie or even County. So is there anything you want to add to that? We're meeting with Aloha Aina Poi Company, Kumano Ikeala on Monday to talk about 3 different opportunities with them on workforce development for their 10 acres. Was it 20? 10 that they just got on the North Shore. So they need 20 people to farm their property. And so we're looking at that as a way to kind of work with them and other agricultural producers to create more of a pipeline that would include ag tech potentially as a learning pathway. They're really grounded in place-based Aina focused connection to land in terms of what they're going to do with their 10 acres, likely Kala.
Right. Yeah, I think like as, so like I know Greg's talking about the future and whatever, to just be realistic on our food sourcing, to also really incorporate, because I get the small farmer, but there is that other element that is, if you're gonna produce food for the island, it's not gonna be a small farm, technically.
Yeah, I think you're pointing up or lifting up what might be useful to understand what the state is doing, how we see our role in ag as connected to them. Keep in mind that this is 2 people in the city who have some kuleana related to agriculture. So it's not really an established thing. And it's where we're trying to build partnerships and build out our work where we could make an impact. But I think this is potentially a topic that we haven't really dug into this year at all, that maybe could be something we could spend more time next year. And the presentation from DVET and others, because the Agriculture Development Corporation is under them now, too, might be interesting.
I mean, something, partner with UH, there's so many, great opportunities, because of what it is and our situation being in island state.
Our law section, business law section, formed a work group to help farmers. Because before the pandemic, because everyone was trying to pitch in and learned a few things. Number one, farmers don't necessarily want to have a lawyer.
Yes.
Because they're not legal. So they do stuff they can survive, right? So you live on the farm, even if it's not permitted for that, right? That's an example. So, yeah, they're in a different place. I'm used to counseling people that don't comply with everything. So it was fine for me, but for a lot of lawyers, it was tough. The other thing is I learned that there's 2 factions. There's institutional farming and then there's individual farming, right? They don't necessarily agree. So that's a dynamic. And the third thing big thing is that they don't make money like individual farmers. And so I know that when I was interviewed for this position at the council, I told them, you can provide services, that's not going to really help. What you need to do is make it profitable. If you work your tail off all year and you make 50,000, let's say, that's tough. Who's going to want to do that, right? So you got to make the economics. And I know at the federal level, they subsidize agriculture. I don't think probably the city has the resources for that, but maybe there's a way to make it profitable because we need it for food security, right? So to me, the number one issue is not economic to be a farmer. That's the problem you have to solve.
I'll make a comment, you know, in a project that I worked on. And I was able to get a $500,000 grant for the project for NRCS to do, you know, just a handbook on small farming. And what it comes down to is, and I work with soil and water conservation, and they're like, Debbie, small farming is not pretty. And they don't want anybody in there, they're fiercely independent people, like that, it's like this innate nature. And, you know, the project is over and, you know, I still am involved, you know, to support in any other way. And they're like the ultimate entrepreneurs, but they're gonna be like the Wild West, like, I'm gonna do what I need to do. And, you know, and they'll work together, but they're fiercely independent. And I can't imagine that there's any of that, I feel like that's an innate nature, no matter what demographic, they could be Vietnamese, Samoan, whatever, they have this alignment and understanding. I mean, that it's interesting.
We definitely experienced that with ag grants. Hardly any of them speak English, so it's challenging. And very few, you know, you need to be up on taxes and everything else to get a federal grant, so. Anything? you
I mean,
wanna-
this is why partnerships with Go Farm
Yeah.
and whatnot, they have a new producer like technical assistance where they're coordinating resources for folks that are needing of help, so. You know, you have Pacific Gateway in there, you have Go Farm, you have folks who have the different types of expertise to do that, so. You know, back to your point, is figuring out how to make it profitable. That's why these systems efforts are important, because value chain infrastructure is what's missing. That is gonna allow smaller farmers better access to market and better prices for what they're selling. So like, well, we're teed up perfectly with how we're structured, because like the city properties could be a solution for that, right? The partnerships with Go Farms that already exist and with our small business network, like those are things that we can invest more in. A lot of questions and concerns, particularly with USDA funding now with the administration change, is what's gonna happen with all this funding that has been coming to Hawaii over the last few years. And I'm not as worried about it for this office in particular, because I think the shift under the new administration, instead of it being climate and environmental, right? It's gonna shift to workforce development and small business. So I think that's gonna be the focus of the USDA grants going forward. That's just my guess, given how Trump's administration was before. So the way that we're set up and we're framing things, I think is gonna put us in a position to continue receiving federal funds. So it's just about developing our ideas and our ability to collaborate with the existing networks and efforts that are happening, where we can add value in our unique way from the city's perspective.
I think part of it is what crops do they choose to grow, you know, like Fred, who is a tech guy, became a farmer, and he chose, I forgot the herb he's growing, but it's high value, high and exportable. So my understanding just from anecdotally is like, someone comes into farm and what do they decide? Well, they're gonna farm something because the person next door is doing it. Because I don't know, it's just sort of like, oh, why don't you grow this? Okay, that's probably not the best way to, you know, so, you know, maybe some advising would help them, but like you're saying, they're kind of hard hit. Maybe it's also a different population of people that starts farming. Like sometimes you can't change the people that are already doing it. But maybe the new farmers can figure out how to make it more profitable, right? So you support them, like the Bishop Street, you know, there's been some flow of that, you know, people want to do that, but it's gotta be economic, you know.
You know, Greg, what you're hitting on is what your line of thinking is there are early conversations happening around the need for that data for to better connect supply and demand.
Yeah.
And what marketing signals are necessary to do that. This work is emergent, but the city staff are well aware of these network and kind of systems and data kind of things that are happening. So we're going to continue to keep them in the mix, and as it strengthens and we figure out how those are going to emerge as actual useful tools in the marketplace, I think that's where this city being in conversation along the way is gonna be helpful, so that again, we can figure out like from the city's perspective and what it can and cannot do, how best for the city to align to these collaborative efforts that are happening in the market.
My friend's growing turmeric. Just came out and is wants to build a processing plant. And allow access to other farmers. Yeah. So it's a
I saw
high
that
raw
pitch deck.
margin. I'm sorry?
I saw that pitch deck.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
He's been trying for a while.
So, any final questions for Amy? It sounds like some of you folks need to join further up. We've got to create a pig for the agenda for this year, so I know some members who can join. All right, so the next agenda items, we've got 3 action items. We have 2 pigs that are going to report and 1 pig for us to consider to form. So I'm going to pass it to you, Greg, on your side.
I have a brief report. I've been a little bit delinquent on this, but the pig did not meet since the last meeting, so we need to do that. I think with Kim gone, it's a little hard, probably logistically to do things, so who should I go to in her absence, Amy, to help me with logistical things like that?
I'll have to follow it.
Oh, okay. She was a wrecking crew. She got a lot done, but but I've been doing my own research on the laws, you know, gathering examples from other places, other cities. For example, how do you define a local business, right? So there's no sense reinventing the wheel there. So I think we'll survey that and figure out what approach we want to take. I think that we need to gather some data from the city as far as what are we doing now? You know, what kind of local support are we giving currently if we have that information? But if not, we should do it anyway. It's my philosophy. Because I think like entrepreneurs, even if we start modestly, we're going to learn something by doing something. We can't learn everything just from studying it first. So at some point, we may have to take a position, just say, well, we need to do X, Y, Z. And of course, you can set parameters around the idea so that we're not just wasting taxpayer dollars. And there's some cities that do that. They'll put parameters around the amounts, they'll tier the percentages, etc. Right now, we're kind of looking at 10%. And I think for those who weren't here last time, we're basically saying we want a local preference on city contracts so that more of the money can stay in Hawaii. And right now, we're kind of looking at 10% ballpark to do that, but you know, it's definitely a work in progress. So hopefully by the next meeting, we can have an official report. And I guess that would be the end of the term of the pig, as I understand it, once we present a report. And then I guess the commission takes over from there, so. Yeah, so that's it. Any questions about what we're doing or?
Do you need help beyond your pig members?
Well, I think I could use some lawyer help. So I don't know if the corp counsel has lawyers that could do research, for example. I can do a lot of it myself, but you know, if there's, and I was even thinking of getting maybe an intern, a lawsuit intern or something to help out.
Thanks, Greg. So the next pig report is coming from me, so I think I'm the only pig member here. Eliza and Reeb are the other 2 members. And so we were tasked with 2 things. One is to draft our report for this year. And so I'm begging you guys to please read it because we took some liberties on some of the words that we chose and the work that we did for this year. So go ahead and read it. There's a Google Doc that allows you to either comment if you want to comment or actually go in here and edit that. And it's already been posted and it's here as well. So.
Is this the right one?
Yes.
Okay.
No.
Oh, yeah.
It's,
No.
Okay, so I'm not going to walk you through all the parts here. You guys already saw this here, but there are a few sections in there that maybe you could pay a little bit of attention to. One is where we summarize the work that we did for this year, as well as the work that we plan to do for the coming year. take a look at that. And if you guys read our report from last year, it's following the same format, and there's a section where Amy went in and summarized the work of OER itself, so there's a lot of information there. So get to know this document because it's the work of our collective group over the past year. There's even a Hawaiian word in there, huh? Adwin Pao. Yes, that's it. The summary for today's meeting there. Okay. So any questions on the report? Has anyone read it? Have some specific questions? It will be on. I'm gonna pass it to Constancio. The other part that this pig was commissioned to do is to look at the $25,000 that we have to cover this year. And so we have a recommendation for that, and Constancio would give us an update on the proposal for that money.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. So it's really an opportunity. Thank you for the opportunity to be able to present this proposal to all of you. But before that, I wanted to recognize and acknowledge the entire team who really put their hands and heads together to build this proposal. This is entirely a team effort, and also in partnership and collaboration with the Permitted Information Group. And we received their feedback. We went through a series of meetings to just kind of go over some of the details and incorporated it into this particular proposal. We're also very fortunate and grateful for the opportunity to present this, and hopefully with your help and with your support, we'll be able to realize this particular project. So the project that we wanted to present to you is called the Small Business Startup Incubator Program. And if you could imagine, this program is really dedicated to building help build the startup ecosystem here in Hawaii or Oahu in general. Speaking with some of the other state agencies and also some of the resource partners and some of our team members could further elucidate on this particular information in this area, is that one of the things that is needed right now in our ecosystem is creating a pathway for those people, entrepreneurs in distressed communities or underserved areas to be given the chance and the opportunity to realize a small business for themselves, right? And so when we talk about equity and inclusivity within our communities, we really want to dig into areas where that are distressed, that are underserved and disadvantaged. And we want to give them the opportunity to be a part of this ecosystem, because many of them don't really see that there is a space for them to build their ideas and allow this to be a sustainable business for them. Right, and so that is the pathway that we're really trying to achieve. There are three main objectives for this particular program. First is increasing participation of underserved businesses in the local economy, enhancing participants' business skills and financial readiness, and accelerating participants' growth and sustainability. Right. So the program itself, and many of you are already quite familiar with this, is a 6-month incubator program that provides technical assistance, workshop, and education for startup entrepreneurs. And this will give them not only the technical knowledge, but also the business knowledge to be able to build and maybe formalize their hobbies into actual businesses, right? So one of the main conversations and discussions that we have is really understanding who our target market. With OER really focused on equity and inclusivity, we really wanted to make sure that we're hitting the right market for this particular proposal. So if you go to the next, Kate, if you could just help me go to the next phase of this project. So the target market that we're really looking at is really serving the minority-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, veteran-owned and underrepresented groups, right? And we use the word businesses, but this is something that we're also kind of we're having some continued discussions, because for our target market, we are considering those that have ideas, hobbies, or would like to consider building their own business. So they're not really established businesses. They may have a hobby, they may be selling at Etsy or a pop-up, they're probably baking cookies, or maybe what's the word? Accessories, or something that they produce on their own and would like to sell it and maybe scale it at some point, or maybe realize it as a business, right? So that is the current target market that we're looking at. So if you see at the participant requirements, the business stage kind of varies from 0 to 3 years. And really, again, we're not limiting it to established businesses, but in order to capture the equity side, we wanted to make sure that those that have ideas, those that have hobbies, and are selling at pop-up markets or makete are able to make use of this particular workshop. The reason why we want to do that is because we don't want to be duplicative in terms of the efforts that are being done by our resource partners. We do have a good relationship and trusting relationship with our resource partners, and through Alyssa and the OBC team, we believe that by targeting the segment that currently do not have access to those resource partners would be the best kind of approach to limit the duplication and continue the partnership with our resource partners. So
Who would have access to the resource partners if it's like digital? Is it more like they don't qualify?
Sorry, could you repeat that again? Sorry.
Like who wouldn't have access to the resource partners if everything's digital? Or is it that they don't qualify?
Not sure I understand the question. How would they have?
Because you're saying you want to target folks who don't currently access resource partners, but how would folks not be able to access resource partners if everything's digital? Or is it that they don't qualify for their particular resource partners?
It could be a couple of things. I think one could be they're not familiar with the resource partners. They are not connected to the OBC as of yet. And that is one of the objectives of this particular program, is how can we tap into those communities and allow them and connect them to the OBC and potentially to those resource partners. I don't know if that answers.
Yeah, that helps. Thank you.
So this program is actually a hybrid program. We are expecting and anticipating both in person. We're looking at a community-based type of program, really starting with the distressed communities, let's say on the West Coast, Waianae, Nanakuli area. That will be our pilot initiative, and then moving into other areas that we have identified on Oahu, such as Waipahu, Wailua, potentially in Waimanalo. Those are kind of like the areas that we wanted to focus on. But for the first pilot program, we are really looking at on the west side and Waianae and Nanakuli area, and potentially use that as what Greg had mentioned a while ago, maybe use that as a use case and potentially maybe gain more dollars at some point, federal grants, or maybe to some point formulate funding from the city council. Right? So now what does this program structure look like? If you go to the roadmap, so this could potentially hopefully give you an idea. So there are 2 phases to this. So the phase 1 is really the program itself. It's a 6-month program. We start with the training sessions and then potentially do a final pitch for the cohort. We're anticipating about 10 entrepreneurs, early entrepreneurs, and maybe startup businesses to be a part of this cohort, do a final pitch, very similar to what HIR is already doing, what Melly James, Mana Up is already doing, and Purple Maya is already doing. So kind of using the same approach and kind of like the same model. We do have wraparound services for this program, again, because a lot of them are early stage entrepreneurs who maybe don't know how to formulate a business plan, don't have a minimum viable product. Those are potential outcomes for this particular program. We want to connect them to the OBC platform. One other element is the mentorship. We believe that mentorship is a viable component for this program, particularly for those types of businesses. And this also came from Olin and some of our performance interaction group as feedback. And of course, partners, our resource partners are critical to the success of this program and our resource connectors who will ensure that these startup entrepreneurs are not only connected to OBC, but they are given a curated plan on how to make that business successful, even when they finish this particular program. So that shows the continuation from the final pitch to potentially the outcome that we want to see is that these startup early entrepreneur businesses would now have the technical knowledge and the business knowledge to gain access to the pre-existing accelerator/incubator programs that are already in the ecosystem. So what we're really trying to do here is to set up the base, fill in the gap that is kind of missing in the ecosystem, and grow and nurture that startup entrepreneurial ecosystem here on Oahu. And then the next phase would be, so this is just a sample curriculum that we have identified, taking note of some of the programs that already exist and looking at where are the gaps, looking at the target market that we would like to benefit from this particular program. And of course, the support of our commissioners and particularly making sure that these businesses who are, some of them currently unbanked, will have the opportunity to gain access to financial capital and have the technical knowledge to be able to gain access and pursue credit through our financial institutions. These are just some of the key partners and their roles and responsibilities. We wanted to highlight that this program is not going to be possible without your support, without your help, and for that we are, very grateful. We see your value in molding and guiding and advising us and how this program is going to be implemented and developed. And so your role as OER commissioners is essentially to provide that guidance, advice, and this is your initiative. I want to be clear. This is the OER Commissioners Initiative, and we are just here to allow that to happen for you. So the question of who is going to administer this program, I think, right, that was one of your questions. At this time, we're looking at the team to be administering that program. Of course, the question about sourcing that is not, we haven't really put that aside. That is still a consideration. But for us, we felt that working with the commissioners would be a good way to implement this program, but also our relationship with the resource partners would also be instrumental in that development. Now, another benefit to administering that program within the office is we'll be able to use the money more for, to provide support to the businesses as opposed to more on the giving administrative fee to whoever is going to administer that. So those are kind of like some of the considerations that we looked at. And I think that is, so those are the roles and responsibilities. The next steps for us is really finalizing the curriculum, finalizing the target market, and also the team. Who is going to be leading, who is going to be managing this program, and creating a structure for the organization who will potentially lead this effort. And we expect to have that in a week or two. By November 22nd, that is the deadline, at least for us to formulate that structure, share that. So some of the expected outcomes, again, from the for the program itself are listed here. So again, the minimum viable product, developing a business model canvas, really anticipating that this is where the gap is. A lot of the startup entrepreneurs haven't really looked into this type of framework, and hopefully the goal is for them to be more familiar with this with this approach to building a business. And ultimately, what we want to see is businesses coming out of this program to be able to register their businesses. And because that is a requirement for many of the pre-existing accelerator programs and incubator programs. And so we want that to be integrated in this curriculum. Yeah. And that is pretty much what the small business startup support program. I wanted to give my team an opportunity to add any things that I may have missed, and that is pertinent for the commissioners to know as they make their decision on whether or not this is something they would like to support. So maybe I'll start with Alyssa. You have something to.
Sure, I thank you, Constanza. I think you did a great job in explaining the program. I thank you, David, for a lot of the foundational work you did to build this. I think this will be a great way to grow along with Business Connector on two sides, both the resource partner engagement, as Amy has brought up, that this is a way to build capacity for our resource partners by helping to fund them, but then also for the businesses too. There are a lot of businesses that are already connected. Once they're kind of in some of these networks, they start to hear about each other. I just sold a table on Facebook Marketplace since I'm moving. The person who picked it up, it's like, oh yeah, my friend is in Mana Up. It's great. I'm going to apply. So a lot of the people are already connected, but really getting down into the community of those businesses that have no idea that there's a lot of free resources out there to help them grow, develop a business, and create that kind of generational wealth for them and their families to be able to stay here. So we really hope that that's what this program will be able to do.
David, anything that's to add to that?
Thank you both. I think I just want to add that we see this program as an opportunity to also highlight the work of OBC's resource partners. This 6-month curriculum is broken into 6 different sections, and we are pretty confident that the resource partners that we want to bring on board to facilitate those sessions are experts in that field, and they already exist on island. Expertise is already here. So just as we want to increase the exposure of small businesses and entrepreneurs to the resource partners, we also want to highlight the resource partners' work and hopefully highlight their work to the overall community on island. That this knowledge already exists. It's just a way, kind of an exposure of how to tap into that. So just want to highlight that. We want to really highlight our partners as well.
Any questions for any of the team?
Where are you looking? I mean, where do you see the entrepreneurs coming from? Like, are you gonna like set up a booth at farmers markets? Seems like a little thing, or especially all the trade shows coming up. The gift show, the gift things, the little booths. I mean, because I feel like, and even, are you gonna provide a list of opportunities? I just was talking to this guy that's helping us do yard stuff, and his wife does these dog outfits. She's killing it online. You know what I mean? It's like things like that, like, maybe you have people that have the entrepreneurial spirit, you just don't know what yet. And so, like, where will you tap in? Because you don't want to just, hey, anybody comes, because then it's hard. And another thought is, have you looked at community college or extension type of opportunities to partner with? When I look at like Santa Monica City College and other colleges on the mainland, it's very much, and some of that curriculum, like, this should be in university because it's actually practical. It actually is poignant. And so at the same time too, you're reaching that demographic because they will work with documented or undocumented people. It's like the community college is open to not just any kind of age range. And I think you have a lot of maybe immigrants, first time, maybe this is the first generation here, but they tend to be entrepreneurial just by nature and just by survival. And they're not going to have the best resume. They're not going to have all the accolades. But to me, this is ideal for that demographic. And I guess the key is, how do you reach them? How do you get them to be like, okay, not for them not to feel, maybe just nervous about doing it, wanting to do it. And you're tapping into anyone from, 18 to 60, So that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, just thinking about how we will and how we've been talking about tapping
Yeah.
into it.
I mean, as far as tapping into them, right now, so thank you for asking that question, because one of our goals right now is how do we design the curriculum to meet that particular target market? So, first is identifying who the target market is and where they are. So the first starting point is we do have access to the resource partners, and not everyone has access to those, right? So not a lot of small businesses have access to those. So I think that could be a good starting point, is understanding who is not able to qualify to the programs that the resource partners are already providing. Because there could be a reason why they're not qualified, right? And it could fall into one of those specific businesses that you were referring to. Maybe they don't have the financial documents to show, and why is that? Maybe they're not a registered business. And so that could be one of those. Another mechanism is to really market this particular program. One thing is we do have our small business connection, and we could go to those areas through our small business connection and basically create an opportunity for people who have ideas to come and listen and understand that, wait, there is this program that we're putting together, and maybe this fits you. This is a time for you to come in and do an information session of some sort. Once we do that, I think the next goal to really inform us is David is actually in this process of creating a focus group to really understand what their needs are, once we've identified who those individuals are, to give us the insight to build and design this particular curriculum to meet those businesses that you were referring to. So I think we do have some mechanism and approach in order to tap to those businesses, but we really want to make sure that those are the target market. So thank you for sharing that.
I think it's a good idea. Initially, when we did the plan, I was thinking it would be more like a mono up, which is sector focused. Because you're trying to do all sectors, I guess. So I had to think about that as you're talking, because it kind of threw me off. Because you can't be good at everything, when you're mentoring. So, but however, I think the role of government is to do what no one else can do, because it doesn't have to be profitable. I think companies that mono up have to make money, and so that's the role of government, to do what's not profitable in a sense. And so I'm thinking that focusing on pre-accelerator people, companies is maybe a good way to think about it. Is that you're, like you mentioned, that you're trying to get them ready maybe for the next level. And so that's a market that's not being addressed, because no one wants to do it, because you can't make money on it, these people are. So I kind of rethought about that, and maybe that's where you position this, because otherwise, just on their presentation, I wasn't sure what it seemed kind of generic. I wasn't sure. It needs to be more focused messaging, right? We're looking for people before you're able to get into mono. Will help you get there.
We can refine the
I think that's important.
messaging, but exactly what you
That's what you
said
want.
is where we're headed. Disadvantaged entrepreneurs, with a great idea.
Yeah,
And particularly
understand.
going to their
I get it.
communities as it identified some.
I
of
used
the
to teach at
areas.
Chaminade, and that's what they do too, the entrepreneurship class there. A lot of their students are first-time college students and their families, and so I think it's great position. So I agree with that, and I think it comes down to how do you pick these 10 or 20 or whatever. It's not a democracy, even though we're in a democracy right now. But you have to, it has to be some merit, I think. You have to pick the people that have the most promise. And so I didn't see anything here about selection criteria, but to me, that's critical aspect of what you're doing.
So there's some things that we haven't had time to delve into, spent more time on the overall.
big
like,
picture.
the
No, I get
makeup of the program, the outcomes, all
I'm
the
just
stuff.
giving feedback.
But no, I want to say that a part of this back here was I think Reed, Owen, and Eliza were very clear that we would like
Right
this
there.
to be commission supported, influenced, directed, wherever you feel like you might have some bandwidth to contribute. as advisors providing strategic advice. So how would we create the selection criteria acting as mentors to the participants? There's only 10 of them. Well, we want to connect them with our resource connectors for further connections to the free resource partners and others that are currently in the OBC. Would any of you want to be mentors to these 10 businesses? Might you want to participate in the selection process? Or establishing the selection criteria? We'd love to have you involved in that. Like,
Yeah, yes.
if there's
to that.
I think it would be good if you guys are going to be a general for everyone, that maybe depending on how many you're doing a year, you think about themes for each one, so there could be more impact with the cohort members with each other if there's only 10 people. So maybe it's not just you're picking one, you're picking like 4 for each, one that's tech-based or product-based or ag-based. If you see when you guys get all the people applying, that you can slice and dice a little bit more so they can integrate better with each other.
I was thinking the same thing, you could have an industry focus, but I don't know if you have enough people to fill the ranks with good.
Yeah, I
ideas.
think it would depend on what ends up coming in, then you can make that decision. But yeah, I totally agree, Greg.
I 100% agree with what Melly just said. I think it's gonna be really hard to get people the support they need when you have too many sectors working at the same time. It would be almost infeasible. So having that kind of theme for different cohorts would be helpful. On top of that, I think if you're gonna focus on geographic areas, it would be really, it maybe adds to the argument that maybe you should be either outsourcing or working very closely with a place-based community partner working in this space to try to identify what the greatest needs and impact that could be created through economic development in that community. Like Waianae Economic Development Council would be an example for the Waianae Coast.
So Waianae Economic Development Council in Peace, as well as the Couple Lake Chamber, are very close and active partners of our OBC team. We've already, kind of began the discussion with them about this. And then we also felt sensitive to, if you feel you want to be in this very early stage support, would you want to take a major role in helping us select the partners? Or, say we go to Kaneohe, right? Where there's a lot of business, a lot of people, but not a lot of organizations that do the kind of things like WEDC and In Peace or Kapolei Chamber and others do. So we would, I think we would welcome further involvement in the formulation stage, as well as these other areas we've outlined, and the commission paid members, put a pin on, ask commission members to do this, ask commission members to do that. I'm speaking for all of them.
You were pretty clear. Can I just say that the key is to get the best people, even if they're not here right in the commission. Like, if I'm not the right person, maybe I can know somebody that's the right person. Like, I used to volunteer at the Boys and Girls Club, and they prided themselves in coaching. And I disagreed that the coaches are all that good at the time. And the kids only paid $1 a year, and so there was an attitude that, well, what, you can complain? I don't want to bring that here. I think these people deserve the best, whoever that is. Best of breed is what we go for, better than us. That we try to give them the best. Why not? Because if you don't give them the best, then you're telling them they're not the best. So, but I think the commissioners can help you find other people too. But is there any issue with the city picking people based on how good you think they are? Is
These
that
will be
okay?
small contracts. This is a month's worth of work. We see maybe, as an idea, it could be one of the resource partners per month.
Yeah, so we're looking at each of these months, we could, to further the relationship and nurture the relationship with the resource partner. Each of the resource partner could be responsible for the administration, the training, the workshop for each of these topics.
In selecting the cohort.
Also,
When you pick them, you're discriminating because you're saying, I'm not gonna pick you because I don't think you're good enough.
Yeah.
And is that okay?
Of course.
Okay, I didn't know if you had to be, you know,
So maybe
Different.
we could also look at
Right.
the model of, right now, so I'm part of the committee for the state's accelerator program. And in that committee, there's like 4 or 5 of us, not only government agencies, but also, nonprofit. And so we could probably use that sort of model wherein we look at, identifying when we receive the applications, what's the criteria and,
no, I'm sure you do a good job. My other thing is that, you know, like in bidding process, people complain if they don't win, right? So if people don't get accepted, do they have any basis for complaint, or is that a non-issue? I mean, they can complain, but would they have any basis for a complaint? That, you know, wasn't treated fairly or something,
I don't know.
because that's the advantage of outsourcing, it's not your problem, right? Someone else doing the picking.
We don't, 25,000 will not allow us to outsource this. I mean, if it was a bigger program, yes, but,
We can go bigger.
I would think our challenge is gonna be just finding enough people. Cause you're talking about
I don't think
people you
that's
need
gonna
to
be
find.
a problem at all. The 10 entrepreneurs,
Like if you go to Y9, you wanna find, say, 10 entrepreneurs who haven't been in business a year, who get chance. Like, that might be hard to locate, I would think.
I mean, given what we do for a living here, I do not see that as even a slight hiccup in this program.
So you think it'll be oversubscribed?
Mhm.
We want to pick ones that we're successful, because that's gonna help us become successful.
I
We don't
think
wanna
that's a
just
matter
take
of establishing strong criteria.
criteria. So
Yeah.
we're
And
currently.
good mentorship.
Yeah, we're currently in the process. I know our data team and David and Alyssa are gonna be part of that team in formulating maybe a first draft of, and they're already been working on it, the criteria. And so that could be shared with the team for further feedback, but yes, definitely agree.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll just mention that I think one of the. Mira and Kayla and I have already kind of gone through the preliminary criteria discussions. We have a lot of ideas and questions as well. But one thing that you actually highlighted was that we're able to do things that are not necessarily profitable. And I think for this program as well, we would like to incorporate more like aligned success metrics. Whereas maybe it's not how profitable the participant's business is at the time. We're not just gonna pick the ones that are gonna be the biggest money makers. We're not gonna be like, this could be the next Amazon. We wanna find merit-based selection for participants and base it more on the need and kind of the commitment and how we think they would contribute to Oahu and to the business community. So I think we're wrestling with some of those ideas and thinking about how we can do it equitably across participants, but I think purely looking at it as like, who's gonna make the most money is not gonna really be what the main focus of the selection.
When we started business law court, Mitch Dole was one of our mentors. He was my former partner. And his feedback was great, was, well, if it's free, how do you know they're any good? And so we said, you're right. Well, we're not gonna charge them, but we added a evaluation process committee to act like the marketplace, in a sense. That's why I say we pick the best ones to get the free service, because it's a limited resource. And we're a private nonprofit, so no one can complain, but my question is more for government doing that, but that's your going on, but. Yeah, so I think emulating the market, like what would the market choose, is a good way to think about it. Like, you don't want to, it's not just a handout. You have to earn it. You have to submit a application that wows you, like, oh, okay. And our focus was job creation, is that our main goal.
I mean, our main focus is equity, to be clear,
Is equity.
equity.
Well, you want to be inclusive, but you also want the businesses to be successful.
True. But if you are looking at equity, there's some notion that there's a disadvantage, you know, inherent in the individual or the business idea, that this is why we're bringing them into this cohort in the first place. So I think when we go back to 2020 and a whole bunch of very smart people put together Aina Aloha Economic Futures, that could help us on our our core principles in terms of selection criteria too. That there's some things that we want to think about in terms of our core values at OER and our work have to do with engaging community and providing opportunity for small businesses, yes, to start up, but those that give back to the community, that hire from the community that they're in. I mean, I think there's various principles that we might want to look at that are not, GDP driven. I'm not saying we're looking for businesses that are doomed to fail. I just think there's some other principles that have been foundational to OER that we want to make sure are part of our selection criteria and process, that they're here. They want to give back to this place. It's
almost like you're looking for a spark. Like you, in the 10 you pick, you need a few to kind of not maybe stand out from a profit, but in their community so that 10 other people go, I could do that, right? And then,
that's a good.
because I thought it would be tough just because if we're targeting underserved communities with underrepresented entrepreneurs, it just seems like the nature is there would be a lot.
How do you feel like the screening process would be? Like step one, you can fill out the application. But that piece of paper does not necessarily, you can't just screen on a piece of paper, because that person just may not have had the educator, doesn't speak English or whatever, but they're hustlers, they want to do something. And then two, as you create the criteria, I know you're talking equity, but you're also talking entrepreneurship. And like, how do you delineate, like, how is it going to serve the community or whatever? But it might be sort of, because at the same time you're talking about a product or creating a product that you might want to do in a hobby and this and that to make money. So yes, it's equity. And then there's also like, they do have to make money, right? That's just going to be part of the nature of it. As much as giving back, it might be, so to me, how do you get that in-person interview? Because I was just sharing with Keone when my dad years ago had his company. We just had a reunion, and now everybody's in their 70s or whatever that worked for him. And they were like 20 years old, and it was in the tour industry. And they were given these challenges, and I'll just share a few things where, sometimes things just didn't go right. They used to charter planes to get people over here back in the 60s and stuff. It wasn't always United and stuff. And things would go wrong. And these people, like some of the things they had to challenge is like, they had to figure out how to work with 150 people where they've got 5 hours to kill, or their rooms, there's not enough rooms. And they would have people bunk up, and it was just a different time that people were happy. But when I found out how old they were like, something were like 19, they 20 years old, and they just had that entrepreneur spirit, and they were given such responsibility. And I was telling Keone, like now, unless you have that resume, you can easily get overlooked the way you have to fill out an application these days. It's a platform, and I don't have 3 to 4 years experience. I've never done that. So how do you get, I get it, but I feel, strongly that there are, like, how do you get to the point of the personal interview? I know you can't do a lot of them, but, because I think that personal interview will have a lot of aside from just what they write down. Like, they may not have written maybe nothing, and then all of a sudden you meet this person and they're just like, wow, there's just something about them. They're excited, they have this energy, and, we can work with them, kind of a thing. So I guess it's like, how do we tap that ingenuity that is just innate?
Can I have a question? So I like the thoughtfulness that went into building this. Like, how many rounds of this do we have funding to do? For sure, 1. So you need to demonstrate success on this. Like, we need to hold that as important, right? Like, we need to demonstrate success. And the money that's funding this is not just the 25, but it's also SSBCI.
No. Do you want to share that there?
Yeah, so it's the $25,000 that the commission has fully on over that the PIG had to make a recommendation.
General funds from the city council.
General funds that was authorized through the city council. And then Reed had asked his USA Federal Credit Union Foundation to see if they could double it and match it. And so we just got a text that they did, they approved it. So should we go ahead with this, then there'll be another $25,000 coming from USA Federal Credit Union. That money will go to the participants in the form of what's that? Completers, yeah, in the form of like a business account that's credited with some of these funds, so just spread it out amongst these 10 companies if they all complete it. And then Hawaii Federal Credit Union is committed to see them through with additional financial services. Because a lot of these folks may not be banked at the time of the thing, but they'll be sort of shepherded through the process. So I know one of the actual.
Wait, sorry. So you're saying each participant's gonna get $50,000 in like grants?
No, we have a total of $50,000, and what we want to do is this is partly. We're gonna pay the providers from the Oahu Business Connectors. It's a connection to the Oahu Business Connectors. We don't want them to volunteer, like they should be paid for their services. So if they pick up month 3, then they should be paid for putting on that curriculum. So part of the $25,000 that we're putting in, if we choose to go ahead and adopt this, is we'll pay for those services. And then on the Reed side with that foundation, then it can go to pay for the people that complete the program. So they have a little bit of unrestricted money to build their business. So it won't be.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of the longer arc, right? So like we do this.
Yeah.
You do something pretty good, you learn from it, it has success, that gives you the evidence to go and get funding from other places. Maybe the council, maybe federal sources, whatever. So we need to be thinking about that shit, like what is the evidence that we need at the end of this pilot? Right? That's gonna demonstrate success.
Right, and that's what Mira, Kayla, and David have been thinking about, because before the permitted interaction group said, we were looking at the UHERO advice. Could we just use the 25,000 to like support that, to do those things that the small businesses said they want? Okay, would it be the small business support? Okay, what are you guys working on? And we've just been talking about with the startup, this was the whole point, is to demonstrate our own minimum viable product. And then to be able to, I hope, Greg, you mentioned public-private partnership, that this would be something that Reed's dollars don't demonstrate. This is worthy of a bank or a credit union, even if it's their CRA, might they invest in this because we're gonna get 10 businesses with a strong backbone to get started, right? And then they can go to the Mana Ups, or then they can graduate to the Accelerate Hawaii, or the Pre-X, or HIR, etc. But ironically, what you're talking about was where we were thinking about in our earlier development of this proposal. So I think if we can get more support in nailing down that criteria and looking at what other federal grants and potential funders like financial institutions or others who might want to see more strong small businesses popping up on this island, we're happy to align. We want, in the end, bankable businesses.
I think there'd be a lot of point that we also looked at with Hawaii USA Federal Credit Union. We can start to collect some metrics as well too, because after they leave in 6 months down the road, a year, what have we actually done? And so that's part of the agreement that they might sign, is that they might authorize the release of some of that anonymous data across the board. Greg, you had something?
No, I was just saying, I think that banks obviously would be big on this, CPB, Hawaii National, I mean, the local banks for sure. And that may require it to be spun off to a nonprofit at some point, right? Because I don't know if you can give tax deductions to people if they donate to this program here in the city. But you can spin it off and then you can have a management agreement with the city, with the OER, some collaborative agreement. So that's a public-private partnership up there. So, that might be a strategy going forward. But I think that's why I focus on the business prospect of each and every 10 companies. Even if they're, you know, you add diversity to the mix, but they all have to be high potential people, if not their idea, you know, so that we, you know, like VCs, all 20 companies they invest in have to be home runs, and only one or two might make it, even at that. So we have, I think we have to have a discipline to apply to each and every. I think interviews would be a must, you know, to talk to these people before you make the final decision. But anyway, I'm happy to help or get people to help, because I think it's a cause people believe in strongly.
With Melly, like just like everybody says, okay, we're gonna get these people ready to go to Mana. What you back into it, like what does Melly look for?
Well, it really is more not like Mana Up, but more to like accelerate Hawaii, like a pre-X.
Well, I know, but I think the idea is like, you know, just raw startup, but then we want them to be able to be.
Absolutely.
Right, get to Melly's, you know, level, but it would be interesting from Melly's perspective, like, what does she look for? Like, what, you know, like, so the curriculum is developed to make sure that it hits those points that they can go to another accelerator that it will take it to the next level.
Right, so that's why if you see one of the month 6 is actually financing and credit union registration. And that is from a continuity standpoint, right? So if many of the businesses are unbanked, are not registered with a bank, then we integrate that curriculum, and that also is from Reed's feedback, and kind of get them to the next step if there is an opportunity or a pathway for them to learn more about credit union or be a part of a financial institution. But I do agree with what you're saying. That's the conversation that we've already had. Where do we want to see these businesses after they graduate from this program? And to make sure that they meet the criteria that Accelerate Hawaii or the Mana-Ups they actually need in order to participate in those programs.
Yeah, that's smart. I mean, Ola's idea to me is one that's resonating the most. Is like pick a thematic or pick a community. Like you can look at Waianae, like that whole coast as an example, right? It's politically smart for the city to invest in economic development in Waianae, right? Because I mean, just look at what's happening when there's no opportunities in a community, right? So how could we intentionally go and work with service providers in Waianae Moku, from In Peace, Waianae Economic Development Council, MAO, like those groups, to be able to really look at like how do we support other entrepreneurial activities in our community and identify the best ones that can come through whatever process. Because I will tell you, like Greg, I hear what you're saying, but like I've had shining stars come through my program that if you went by their application, you would have put them out. Like you wouldn't have chose them, but they got the support that they needed, and they're shining stars now. And so like this equity piece is really important. If that's what we're about, then we really need to design the process to meet that. Can't just have it as an outcome.
Yeah.
It needs to be baked into the process. So if like I think maybe for us at the commission level, it's like affirming what's the priorities for this. And it sounds like we're not all clear, like you're saying it is, and I just want to make sure we're all clear. Like if this is about equity to address marginalized communities, then that needs to be baked into the selection process.
Yeah, and Keone, the placeholder for the location, the physical location to deliver the services is Honolulu Library right now.
Great. But I think if we're good at what
Yeah, I love that.
those
One thing I was gonna say, sorry, don't mean to interrupt, I just can't tell when you guys are paused or not. One other thing that's been an area of issue is like, and this may be another aspect of the program that could be helpful is, you know, a lot of folks are, yes, can you hear me?
Can I hear you? Just talk louder into the mic.
Yeah,
Oh, you guys can't hear me? I'm on 2 earphones on.
we can. It just sounds a little mumbly.
Oh, okay. Not sure how to change that, but 'cause I'm on the plane, I haven't taken off yet. But one of the things is around, maybe this will help. One of the things is around like folks are always complaining about the bureaucracy of government, and it's hard to even register, like paying taxes, people don't know, and then they get dinged. There's a lot of kind of like bureaucratic and government elements that are really, really challenging for companies, not only just to get started, but to let alone create generational wealth. If that's, hopefully that's someday a possibility. So I think there's an opportunity, especially because government here, especially on the city and county side, where there may be opportunity to ease some of those challenges, that is also a huge, huge barrier for many of the companies, especially getting started. So I just want to make sure that maybe that area gets addressed as well, just because there's an opportunity here to look at gaps. You guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah,
We got
thanks, Tony. So given that we've got 10 more minutes, we have 2 more agenda items. Did you guys hear enough that we can actually take a vote? We can just move forward with some. Agency, okay, so I think, can you pull up the report from 2024? What I'm gonna suggest is that the PIG worked on the report, and there's a few sections there that I wanna just point out that we could vote for. And the motion I'm looking for, if you guys are okay with it, is a conditional approval of this 2024 report with the points that we make in the report, which includes the authorization of this $25,000. With giving the PIG the opportunity to make some technical changes as needed. Like we have to put in the minutes from today, for example. So here, if you look at the year 3 agenda highlights, we're talking about developing a local preference for small business and city procurement, the work that Greg has been talking about. We have some things we pointed out, like looking for an audit with the city or requesting an audit so we can get some core data for Greg. And so that's part of the request of year 1. And then the second one is what we just already talking about, the $25,000 small business pilot support program. And that aligns with the work that we've done historically this year with OBC as well as the work with UHERO. And then for 3, Amy has been talking about the advocacy for Chapter 38 revisions, so that we'll get active with that. So we'll look at the revisions to Chapter 38 to allow the city to have some agency over renting out those units, maybe below market. And then 4 is where we have to create another PIG so that we can work on our work plan for this year. So the motion on the table, or the request for the motion, is to approve this draft as drafted, allowing the PIG to make technical changes as needed.
My only question is, do we need to call it an audit? Just sounds kind of ominous to me, but we just need to gather information, right? They're gonna feel like we're auditing them.
That would be a technical change we could make if you.
Okay, I don't know what you call it, but audit seems a little hostile.
Yeah.
If you can help us frame that.
Words matter, right?
It does, yeah.
Review or gathering, information gathering.
If you scroll down, I think that.
I will just say
We
that,
want them to be our friends.
Yeah.
but you also need to identify offices within the city that have a role to review other offices' activities. We can't do that. We can't, OER can't say, we're gonna go review all the stuff you do, BFS.
But I'm just saying, do we have to use the word audit, just change it to something else?
I don't know necessarily how we would do it otherwise, but we can explore how to soften.
Okay, you guys can figure that out.
Office of the auditor. Okay, all right. Okay, so any other questions on the request for a motion?
I'll put a motion to approve the draft. Or
Any second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Tony,
Aye.
Was it all the entire report or just those sections you showed us?
the entire report with the ability for the PIG to make technical changes. That doesn't
Okay.
change the material.
we're revising the motion there.
I think it's important. And then second part to that is, I think it comes down to what would be your recommended framework for getting additional members to jump into support? Is that something where we'll put out a calendar invite and then those that can make it can join? So I know there's a lot of folks that wanted to provide some feedback on the process.
And they work with other people too, not just commission members,
They can.
because we may know other people want to do this.
I think part of it, like on that page that had the request, like we're being asked to mentor or find mentors, like you mentioned. We're being asked to participate in selection and coming up with the criteria. So there's specific things that are in the report we're being asked to do.
Well, I think the general framework makes a lot of sense, and it's just about fine tuning some of the process. So I'd be good with voting on about $25,000.
I think you did. yeah.
Didn't we already approve that?
Well,
Yeah,
does that get approved through that?
I seconded the motion.
Like, this is a specific,
That's a good point. Yeah, let's make that motion. So the motion on the table is to approve the $25,000 specifically for this program as.
presented, knowing that there's gonna be refinement to process.
And then Tony, you
I'll
seconded? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, then, the last action item we had was, we need a pig to come up with the agenda for this year. Debbie, you had some great points about some of the things you've been talking about. Not putting you on the spot, but, I'm willing to join, but if there are a couple other members that are willing to join to help craft the agenda for this coming year, that would be great.
How's, when is this gonna be done, like, just because I've got a lot of units.
We have the next 48 hours, so we have lots. I'm not sure, see, I think, this is for next year's agenda, so the first meeting for 2025 is January, so. It'd be good if we had something at that meeting.
I could be a part of it, for sure, just.
Is this something we have to do, like every year to come up with that?
Or we could be
Would
told.
you like me to do it?
Well, no,
I mean,
we
the
could-
idea is that you guys get to contribute to a part of that too.
Or just suggesting like creating agendas on like a rolling basis as
I mean, you know, we can, even if we do this, we can change it, right? I mean,
Of
it's not
course.
etched in stone or anything.
Place, so.
Just have some idea, I guess, what we're doing.
And then given what we've talked about, we might be changing some things again. For January.
I don't
So-
think I could lead it, but I could, I definitely wanna participate, just because I have, kind of a little bit of a full plate between now and January next meeting, but.
I think Reed wants to do it.
Who's not?
Not busy.
Right?
The second time this has happened to read.
No, I'm just kidding.
I had a meeting agreed to edit this document, so he's like, I'm at the hospital, so you guys are on your own. So.
He's not at the hospital anymore.
The time, yeah, that's true, right? It's lacking. So anyone else, if not, then we can, the motion on the table will be to form a two-person pig that you and I can work on, at least the first pass of the agenda for 2025.
Okay.
And we can adjust it as needed. Maybe it should be one meeting.
I can help you.
On that too, right? So then we would need a motion on the table to create a pig to create the 2025 agenda with the members being Greg, Debbie, and myself.
It's dangerous.
I think I need to join because it's too dangerous.
Oh, Melly,
Right,
Yeah.
so, oh, we got 4. 4 is not a good number.
He
in
was
some
worried.
languages. 4 is fine.
Okay,
So is there a motion?
we motion ourselves.
You sure
I'll
can.
move approval.
Okay.
I'll second.
We have a motion, we have a second, so we'll second it to create the pig, 4 members, thank you guys, and I'll find a time for us to get together, what's that? Oh, yeah, all in favor, say aye. So, anyone have any, new business to bring to the table?
Just a question about terms. I believe we're terming out. I think I'm terming out this year.
You're not,
I'm not.
yeah, oh, I just made it up.
Not that I want to go on it. I'm just saying there's a process, I think that, right?
So it's you and Eliza Olu. And so Tony can explain, but basically we of course would encourage you to stay. The terms are 5 years with hope that you'll complete it, but understanding if something comes up in year 4. Our managing director's office and the chief of staff will be in touch because they again need your voter registration, they need maybe resume, something else, I can't remember, there's a application.
It was the same process that we went through on day
Yeah.
one. I just
And then
got to do it 1 year after we did it. It was like,
Yeah,
okay.
super fun,
did you have to go to a council hearing?
yes.
Yeah.
You did.
Multiple, everyone will when you're reappointed. And so, but on that note, we did get a notice and a reminder from the Ethics Commission about submitting financial disclosure in the new year. So I'll, Kate and I will email that out to all of you. I believe it has to be done usually by January 30th. And the great part is your old report, now that they have a new system up, is saved. And you could just go in there, amend, click submit, and we should be good to go. And Steve Ueno and or Andy Sugg will be in touch on your extension, and I'll follow up that you're willing to do it.
Yeah, I'm willing.
Okay, awesome, I'll
Any other new business? All right, this meeting is adjourned. Thank
Happy
you, guys.
holidays, everybody.
Gobble, gobble.
Thanks for letting me borrow your
Thank you so
document.
Oh,
Yeah, I second the motion to adjourn. And you worked me hard today. Oh,
Happy
geez.
holidays, everyone.
Really good proposal, man. Yeah. Thank you.
Figured out that you go.
You just figured it on your own.
Thanks for making it.
Sorry, what?
Thank you for making it.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, I'm late. I just.
We have the parking stand.
Yes, I have parking tickets here.
good seeing you. Okay, see you. Coffee. Okay, yeah. I hope. It's a fire meeting.
Since 2020.
I'll have food next week.
No, I mean,
Yeah.
it's been a little busy.
No worries.
I could not do it together. Great.
Yeah, no worries.
Thank you.
You just want to
Excited.
have a lunch meeting and. Okay, Alan. Yeah. So it is actually.
Good.
Okay, good.
I'm gonna, yeah, I'm just gonna.
So it is still.
Thank you, guys.
Yes.
See you as always.
Yeah, did you get your?
Excited.
Parking
I did,
stamp and everything?
yep.
I didn't see you next week in our meeting, right? Wendy.
Oh, yeah. Oh, just to get it on.
Well, I was talking about like.
Yeah, yeah.
I was like, oh, I see.
That's all I put.
Yeah. I know.
Oh, yeah.
Right, with our, so that they were about the things like that. Each of the meeting. And so I think that'd be an easy question. I'm pretty sure, I think she had a question, oh, we are. Yeah, but I would say whatever we did last.
But on